The autumn breeze swept through Chicago's Magnificent Mile, rustling the leaves that clung stubbornly to the trees lining the boulevard. The air carried a crisp edge, mingling with the hum of taxis and the chatter of shoppers who darted between high-end stores. Towering glass facades reflected the late afternoon sun, casting a golden glow over the bustling scene. This was the heart of the city's luxury district, a place where wealth and elegance reigned supreme, and nestled among the designer boutiques stood Jackson Jewelers, a beacon of opulence known for its exquisite craftsmanship and exclusivity. Its sleek storefront gleamed with polished steel and glass, the name Jackson etched in elegant silver script above the entrance, promising treasures within. Nia Jackson stepped onto the sidewalk, her heeled boots clicking softly against the pavement. At 38, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, her tailored trench coat fluttering slightly in the wind. Beneath it, she wore a simple black turtleneck and slim-fit trousers, elegant yet understated, a deliberate choice to blend in rather than stand out. Her dark hair was swept into a low bun, and a pair of oversized sunglasses rested atop her head, framing her warm brown eyes that sparkled with anticipation. Today wasn't just a shopping trip. It was a rare chance to step into her husband's world as an ordinary customer, free from the weight of her usual title. Darius Jackson, her husband of 10 years, had built Jackson Jewelers from a single workshop into a luxury empire, and while Nia often joined him for grand openings or galas, she rarely visited the flagship store alone. Pushing open the heavy glass door, Nia was greeted by the soft chime of a bell and the faint scent of lavender diffuser wafting through the air. The interior was a study in sophistication, walls lined with velvet display cases, each showcasing necklaces, rings, and earrings that glittered under carefully angled lights. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm shimmer across the marble floor. Nia paused, taking it all in, a small smile tugging at her lips. She'd seen these pieces before. Darius often brought sketches home, eager for her input, but experiencing the store as a stranger felt different, almost thrilling. Today, she wasn't Mrs. Jackson, the owner's wife. She was just Nia, a woman in search of the perfect necklace for an upcoming charity event. That anonymity, she thought, was a luxury all its own. Her gaze drifted to a nearby case, where a sapphire necklace caught the light, its deep blue stones beckoning her closer. This was why she'd come, to find something that spoke to her, something she could claim as her own. As she stepped forward, the hum of the city faded behind her, replaced by the quiet elegance of Jackson Jewelers, a world she knew intimately yet felt eager to rediscover. The interior of Jackson Jewelers enveloped Nia like a warm embrace, its ambience a perfect blend of luxury and serenity. The soft clink of a distant glass case being adjusted by a staff member mingled with the faint hum of classical music drifting through the air. Nia moved slowly through the store, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of a velvet-lined display as she took in the dazzling array of jewelry. Each piece was a work of art, diamond-encrusted bracelets, emerald rings, and gold chains that shimmered with understated elegance. But it was the sapphire necklace in the corner case that held her attention, its deep blue stones set against a delicate platinum chain, catching the light in a way that made her breath hitch. It was bold yet refined, exactly the kind of statement she wanted to make at the charity event. She leaned closer, admiring the craftsmanship. Darius had always had an eye for detail, and this piece bore his signature touch, simple yet striking, a balance of power and grace. Nia smiled to herself, imagining how it would look against her skin, the way it might catch the light under the chandeliers of the event hall. "That's a beautiful choice," a voice said, breaking her reverie. She turned to see Liam, a young sales associate with neatly combed hair and a crisp black vest, approaching with a warm smile. "The sapphires are from Sri Lanka," hand-selected by Mr. Jackson himself. Would you like to try it on? Nia nodded, returning his smile. Yes, please. It's stunning. Liam unlocked the case with practiced ease, lifting the necklace carefully and handing it to her. As Nia fastened it around her neck, the cool metal brushed her skin, sending a small thrill through her. She adjusted it, feeling its weight settle comfortably, and glanced toward a nearby mirror. But as she moved, she caught another pair of eyes watching her, not Liam's, but those of a woman standing near the diamond rings. Margaret Voss, clad in a fur-trimmed coat and dripping with pearls, narrowed her gaze at Nia. Her lips pursed into a thin line, and her posture stiffened as if Nia's presence offended her very existence. Margaret was a regular at Jackson Jewelers, a self-proclaimed connoisseur of fine things, and she relished the exclusivity the store offered. To her, Nia was an anomaly, an intruder in a space meant for people like her. Nia didn't notice the full weight of Margaret's stare at first, too caught up in the necklace's beauty. She tilted her head, watching the sapphires glint, and felt a surge of satisfaction. This was it, the piece she'd been searching for. Liam nodded approvingly. It suits you perfectly. Shall I wrap it up? Nia hesitated, savoring the moment. Let me think about it for a minute, she said, her voice soft but decisive. As Liam stepped away to assist another customer, Margaret's gaze sharpened, her disdain growing with every second Nia lingered. The store's quiet elegance was about to be tested. Nia stood before the full-length mirror near the back of Jackson Jewelers, the sapphire necklace resting elegantly against her collarbone. The deep blue stones caught the soft glow of the overhead lights, accentuating the rich brown of her skin and the sleek lines of her black turtleneck. She turned slightly, admiring how the piece moved with her, its understated brilliance making her feel both powerful and poised. For a moment, she was lost in the reflection, not just of the jewelry, but of herself, a woman who knew her worth even when she chose to hide it. The charity event would be a chance to shine, and this necklace felt like an extension of her spirit. A small, satisfied smile curved her lips as she reached up to touch the stones. Her moment of quiet joy was interrupted by the sharp click of heels against the marble floor. Margaret Voss approached, her fur-trimmed coat swishing with each deliberate step, her expression a mask of feigned politeness overlaying unmistakable contempt. "That's quite a necklace," she said, her voice smooth but edged with something bitter. Nia turned, meeting Margaret's gaze, and offered a polite nod. "Thank you. I think it's lovely." Margaret's eyes flicked over Nia, from the necklace to her simple yet chic outfit, and her smile tightened. "Lovely, yes, but ambitious. Pieces like that aren't exactly accessible. Are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't some department store bargain bin." The words hung in the air, sharp and pointed, but Nia didn't flinch. She'd heard tones like Margaret's before, condescension dressed up as concern, assumptions wrapped in silk gloves. Straightening her posture, she met Margaret's stare evenly. "I'm exactly where I need to be," she replied, her voice calm but firm, leaving no room for doubt. Margaret blinked, momentarily thrown by Nia's composure, but quickly recovered, tilting her head with a patronizing chuckle. "Well, confidence is charming, I suppose. But confidence doesn't pay the bills or the price tags here." She gestured vaguely at the store, as if Nia were a child who'd wandered into a forbidden playground. Nia's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression neutral, refusing to let Margaret's barbs pierce her. "I'm not here to prove anything to you," she said, her tone steady. "I'm here for myself." Margaret's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as if Nia's defiance were a personal affront. She took a step back, her heels clicking again, but the tension between them thickened like a storm cloud rolling in. Around them, the store's hum continued. Liam assisting another customer, the soft clatter of jewelry being arranged, but Nia felt the weight of Margaret's judgment pressing down. She turned back to the mirror, adjusting the necklace once more, determined not to let this woman steal her moment. Yet in the back of her mind, she knew this encounter was far from over. The air in Jackson Jewelers grew heavier as Nia stood at the counter, the sapphire necklace now resting in its velvet box beside her. She tapped her fingers lightly against the glass surface, waiting for Liam to return with the paperwork for her purchase. The confrontation with Margaret lingered in her thoughts, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the excitement of claiming the piece she'd chosen. The store's elegance, its polished marble, glittering displays, and hushed murmurs, still held her in its spell. She wasn't here to fight battles. She was here to enjoy a rare afternoon of indulgence. But as she glanced up, she saw Margaret striding toward Liam, her fur coat billowing like a war banner, her voice cutting through the quiet. "Excuse me," Margaret called, loud enough for nearby customers to turn their heads. "I need to speak with you about her." She tilted her chin toward Nia, her lips curling into a sneer. Liam, caught mid-step with a clipboard in hand, hesitated, his friendly demeanor faltering. "Yes, Mrs. Voss. Is something wrong?" Margaret folded her arms, her pearls clinking softly. "I've been watching her," she said, her tone dripping with accusation. "She's been hovering around that necklace like she's planning something. I wouldn't be surprised if she slipped something into her purse when no one was looking." A ripple of unease spread through the store, a few customers exchanging glances, their curiosity piqued. Nia's breath caught, her fingers stilling on the counter. She turned slowly, meeting Margaret's smug gaze, disbelief warring with the heat rising in her chest. Liam's face paled, his eyes darting between the two women. "Mrs. Voss, I'm sure there's no," he began, but Margaret cut him off with a wave of her hand. "Don't be naive, Liam. I know her type. Check her purse. For the store's sake." Liam swallowed, clearly uncomfortable, and approached Nia with an apologetic look. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry, but could I please check your purse? It's just protocol when there's a concern." The humiliation stung, sharp and sudden, but Nia forced herself to stay calm. She slid her sleek leather purse across the counter, her movements deliberate. "Go ahead," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of anger beneath it. "I have nothing to hide." Liam opened the bag with trembling hands, rifling through its contents: a wallet, a phone, a tube of lipstick, a set of keys. Nothing more. He looked up, relief washing over his features. "There's nothing here," he murmured, barely audible. Nia pulled the purse back, her eyes locking onto Margaret's. "Satisfied?" she asked, her tone icy. Margaret's smirk didn't waver. "Check again," she demanded. "She's cleverer than she looks." The room held its breath, the weight of the accusation pressing down on them all. The tension in Jackson Jewelers thickened, a palpable current running through the marble-floored space as Nia stood at the counter, her purse still clutched in her hands. The sapphire necklace sat in its box, a silent witness to the escalating drama. Margaret Voss loomed nearby, her arms crossed and her expression smug, as if she'd already won some invisible battle. Liam, caught between his duty and his discomfort, hovered awkwardly, his clipboard forgotten. The other customers, some pretending to browse, others openly staring, created a quiet chorus of curiosity, their whispers barely audible over the store's classical music. Nia's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity of the moment. She'd come here for a necklace, not a showdown. Yet Margaret seemed determined to turn her afternoon into a spectacle. "You've checked my purse," Nia said, her voice low but cutting through the silence. "You've found nothing because there's nothing to find. If you have no proof, stop this nonsense." Margaret scoffed, her pearls glinting as she tossed her head. "No proof? Your attitude is proof enough. People like you come into places like this, make a fuss, and walk out with things that don't belong to them. I'm just protecting what's valuable here." The words hit like a slap, But Nia didn't flinch. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them, her eyes locked on Margaret's. "You don't know me," she said, her tone steady and sharp. "And you don't get to decide who belongs here." Margaret's smirk widened, undeterred. "Oh, I know enough. And I'm not afraid to say it." She turned to Liam, her voice rising. "She's trouble, mark my words." Nia's hands tightened into fists at her sides, the humiliation and anger warring within her. She could feel the eyes of the room on her, judging, waiting. But she refused to let Margaret break her. With a slow, deliberate breath, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Margaret laughed, a short, mocking sound. "What's this? Calling for reinforcements? Your little friends won't help you out of this." Nia ignored her, dialing a number she knew by heart. The line rang once, twice, then a deep, familiar voice answered. "Darius," she said, her voice calm despite the storm around her. "I need you to come to the store. There's a situation." She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her purse, her gaze returning to Margaret. "You'll see soon enough," she said coolly. Margaret rolled her eyes, confident in her upper hand, but the room buzzed with anticipation. Outside, the faint rumble of an engine grew closer, a harbinger of the shift about to come. Nia stood tall, her composure unshaken, knowing the tide was about to turn. The soft chime of Jackson Jewelers' glass door rang out, slicing through the thick tension that had settled over the store like a fog. Nia stood near the counter, her posture unwavering, the sapphire necklace still in its box beside her. Margaret Voss lingered nearby, her arms crossed and her smirk firmly in place, oblivious to the shift about to unfold. The other customers, their curiosity now a palpable hum, turned their heads as a tall figure stepped inside. Darius Jackson entered with the kind of presence that commanded silence. A broad-shouldered man in a tailored charcoal suit, his polished shoes gleaming against the marble floor. His dark eyes scanned the room with a quiet intensity, and behind him trailed a discreet bodyguard, clad in black, his earpiece catching the light. The air seemed to still, the classical music fading into the background as all attention converged on him. Margaret, ever eager to assert her dominance, let out a dry laugh. Well, she said, her voice loud enough to carry. "Here to defend your little troublemaker, I see." She turned to a nearby customer, as if rallying an audience. "This is exactly why stores like this need better standards, letting just anyone walk in and cause a scene." Her words dripped with disdain, but Darius didn't spare her a glance. His gaze locked onto Nia, who stood with her chin raised, a flicker of relief passing through her eyes. He crossed the room in long, deliberate strides, his expression unreadable, but his presence undeniable. "Nia," he said, his deep voice steady and warm. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Nia replied, her tone carrying the weight of the ordeal but softened by his arrival. "Just dealing with some misunderstandings." Darius nodded, then turned to Liam, who stood frozen behind the counter, clipboard clutched to his chest. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with authority. Liam stammered, his face flushing. "Mr. Jackson, there was an accusation," Mrs. Voss thought. He trailed off, glancing nervously at Margaret, who stepped forward, undaunted. "That's right," Margaret interjected, her chin jutting out. "I caught her acting suspiciously, sneaking around like she didn't belong. I told Liam to check her purse to make sure nothing was stolen." Darius turned to her at last, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You accused my wife of theft?" The words landed like a thunderclap, reverberating through the store. Gasps rippled from the onlookers, and Margaret's smirk vanished, her face paling as the realization hit. "Your wife?" she repeated, her voice faltering. Darius's expression remained stone cold. "Yes, Nia is my wife, and she belongs here more than anyone." The room fell silent, Margaret's bravado crumbling under the weight of her mistake, as the truth turned the tables in an instant. The silence in Jackson Jewelers was deafening, the weight of Darius Jackson's revelation hanging heavy in the air. Margaret Voss stood frozen, her once smug expression replaced by a mix of shock and embarrassment, her pearls suddenly seeming less grand against the flush creeping up her neck. Nia remained near the counter, her composure intact, the sapphire necklace box a quiet symbol of her dignity amidst the chaos. Darius stood tall, his tailored suit and steady gaze commanding the room without effort. The customers, who moments ago had been whispering among themselves, now watched with a mix of awe and discomfort, while Liam, the sales associate, looked like he wished the marble floor would swallow him whole. The bodyguard at the door stood motionless, a silent sentinel amplifying Darius's authority. Darius turned his full attention to Margaret, his voice calm, but cutting like a blade. You accused my wife of stealing, humiliated her in front of everyone. And for what? Because you decided she didn't belong? Margaret opened her mouth, but no coherent words came out, only a weak stammer. I didn't know she was your wife, she managed, her voice trembling. Darius's eyes narrowed, unyielding. That's your excuse? You wouldn't have treated her this way if you'd known who she was. That's not an apology, it's an admission. His words sliced through her defenses, exposing the prejudice at the heart of her actions. Margaret glanced around, seeking support, but found only the judgmental stares of customers who now saw her for what she was. This store, Darius continued, addressing the room now, is built on beauty, craftsmanship, and respect. No one, whether they're my wife or a stranger, should ever feel unwelcome here. You, Mrs. Voss, have disrespected not just Nia, but everything Jackson Jewelers stands for. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. You're no longer welcome in any of our locations. Margaret's eyes widened, her mouth dropping open. You're banning me? She sputtered, clutching her purse. That's right, Darius said without hesitation. We have no place for those who judge others based on assumptions rather than actions. Margaret's face burned crimson, her usual bravado stripped away. With a huff, she grabbed her coat and stormed toward the exit, her heels clicking furiously against the marble. The door swung shut behind her with a soft chime, sealing her disgrace. Darius turned to the staff and customers, his voice softening but still firm. Let this be a lesson. Our words and actions matter. This store is a sanctuary for everyone, and I expect everyone here to uphold that. A few customers nodded, some clapping quietly, their admiration clear. Nia met Darius's gaze, a small smile breaking through her composed exterior as the store began to exhale, forever changed by the stand taken that day. With Margaret Voss's dramatic exit still echoing in the air, Darius gestured toward the back of Jackson Jewelers, guiding Nia away from the curious eyes of the customers and staff. The store's private office awaited, a sleek, modern space tucked behind a discreet door, its walls adorned with framed sketches of jewelry designs, and a single window overlooking the magnificent mile. Nia stepped inside, the sapphire necklace box still in her hands, and sank into a plush leather chair. Darius followed, closing the door with a soft click, the hum of the store fading into a distant murmur. He loosened his tie slightly, his imposing presence softening as he took the seat across from her, his dark eyes searching her face with quiet concern. Nia, he said gently, leaning forward, are you okay? She nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips, though the tension of the ordeal lingered in her shoulders. I'm fine, Darius. Just rattled, I suppose. He reached out, resting a reassuring hand on hers, his thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles. You handled it with more grace than she deserved. I'm proud of you. Nia's smile widened, the warmth of his words easing the sting of Margaret's accusations. I almost didn't call you, she admitted, her voice quieter now. I thought I could deal with it myself. Prove I didn't need rescuing. Darius chuckled, a low, rich sound that filled the small room. You didn't need rescuing, Nia. You were holding your own just fine. I came because no one gets to treat you like that. Not in my store, not anywhere. She met his gaze, the strength of their partnership shining through the exhaustion of the moment. 10 years of marriage had forged a bond that went beyond words. Two people who'd built a life together, weathering storms both personal and professional. Nia squeezed his hand, grateful for the anchor he provided, even when she prided herself on standing tall alone. She lifted the necklace box, running her fingers over its velvet surface. I still want this, she said, a teasing glint in her eye. After all that, it feels like I've earned it. Darius grinned, leaning back in his chair. You earned it the second you walked in here. That piece was made for you. Literally, if I recall the design meeting. Nia laughed, the sound lightening the air between them. Well, then I'd better make it official. She stood, smoothing her trench coat, and Darius rose with her, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder, a silent promise of unwavering support. Together, they stepped back toward the main floor, ready to reclaim the day, the necklace a testament to Nia's resilience and the strength they shared as husband and wife. The atmosphere in Jackson Jewelers began to settle, the sharp edges of the earlier confrontation softening as the store resumed its usual rhythm. Customers returned to browsing, their hushed conversations now tinged with admiration rather than gossip, while the staff moved with a renewed sense of purpose. Nia stood at the counter once more, the sapphire necklace box open before her, its deep blue stones catching the light as Liam processed her purchase with extra care. Darius lingered nearby, his presence a quiet reassurance, his sharp suit a stark contrast to the nervous energy still radiating from the young sales associate. The office conversation had grounded Nia, and now, with the ordeal behind her, she felt a quiet triumph in completing what she'd come to do. Liam looked up from the register, his hands trembling slightly as he handed Nia the receipt. Ma'am, Mrs. Jackson, he corrected himself, his voice soft with apology. I'm so sorry about earlier. I should have handled it better. I should have stopped her from the start. Nia offered him a gentle smile, her earlier frustration tempered by his sincerity. It's all right, Liam. You were caught in a tough spot. Just learn from it. Darius stepped forward, his tone firm but not unkind. She's right. Mistakes happen, but it's how you move forward that counts. Make sure every customer feels valued here. No exceptions. Liam nodded quickly, his cheeks flushing. Yes, sir. I promise it won't happen again. I'll train the team better, too. Nearby, a cluster of staff members hovered near a display case, their whispers carrying the weight of the day's lesson. That was intense, one murmured, adjusting a ring tray. Yeah, but he's right, another replied. This place is about more than jewelry. It's about respect. We can't let that kind of thing slide. The words echoed Darius's earlier address, sinking into the store's culture like roots taking hold. Nia watched them for a moment, her heart swelling with pride, not just for Darius, but for the legacy they'd built together, one that stood for something beyond profit. Before leaving, Darius turned to the remaining customers, his voice carrying across the room. Thank you all for your patience today, he said, his tone warm yet authoritative. I hope you'll remember that this store is for everyone. Kindness and understanding aren't just ideals. They're what keep places like this alive. A few customers clapped softly, their nods signaling agreement. Nia slipped the necklace box into her bag, the cashier's earlier compliment. You looked incredible with it on, ringing in her ears. As she and Darius stepped toward the exit, the store's brilliance felt renewed, not just in its gems, but in the reflection it demanded of everyone within its walls. The late afternoon sun dipped lower over Chicago's Magnificent Mile, casting long shadows across the bustling street as Nia and Darius stepped out of Jackson Jewelers. The crisp autumn air greeted them, a welcome contrast to the charged atmosphere they'd left behind. Darius's sleek black SUV idled at the curb, its tinted windows reflecting the golden light, and the bodyguard held the door open with a subtle nod. Nia slid into the leather seat, the sapphire necklace box resting in her lap, while Darius settled beside her, his presence filling the space with a quiet strength. As the car pulled away, the store's gleaming facade faded into the distance, but the weight of the day lingered, a story etched into Nia's mind. Darius glanced at her, a playful glint in his eyes. "You know," he said, his deep voice laced with humor, "if you're going to keep shopping at my stores, I might need to tag along more often. Seems I'm pretty good at shutting down trouble." Nia laughed, the sound bright and free, washing away the last traces of Margaret's venom. "I think I'll manage just fine. Thank you," she teased, patting his arm. "But I'll keep you on speed dial, just in case." He grinned, leaning back against the seat. "Always got your back, Nia. You know that." She nodded, her smile softening. "Always." Her fingers brushed over the velvet box, and she lifted the lid, gazing at the sapphire necklace nestled within. The stones shimmered even in the dim light of the car, a deep blue that mirrored the resilience she'd summoned that day. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry anymore. It was a symbol, a testament to her strength in the face of prejudice, a reminder that no one could diminish her worth. She thought of Margaret's sneers, the purse check, the moment of humiliation, and how she'd stood tall through it all. Then came Darius, her rock, turning the tide with a single truth. Together, they'd transformed a moment of ugliness into one of triumph. As the SUV glided through the city, Nia made a silent promise to herself. No matter where life took her, whether into the glittering world of Jackson Jewelers or the everyday chaos beyond, she'd carry this day with her. She'd wear the necklace not just for its beauty, but for what it represented, her right to belong, her power to rise above, her unshakable dignity. The store's lesson in fairness and respect would echo, but for Nia, it was personal. She closed the box, resting it gently in her lap, and leaned her head against the window, the sapphire promise glowing within her as the windy city rolled by. Please rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10. Let us know, what do you think? Your support means the world, and we can't wait to bring you more incredible stories like this.